Welcome to the OFX podcast. I'm Dave Claxton, and along with me, as always, is our very own in-house hybrid hotshot, Bethany McChesney. And today, for the first time, and it's been long overdue because I know myself, I wanted to talk to you for ages. Lauren Weeks, champion of all 2020, and a bunch of other things. How are you doing, Lauren?
I'm doing well. I don't. That's a little bit of an exaggeration, but I appreciate it. And Bethany, I don't know if he told you, but every time he introduces you, it's like my favorite part of your entire episode.
Aw, that's nice. I have no idea what he names me, by the way. It's always a surprise to me, too.
I can tell. You sound surprised every time.
I know.
Eventually, I'm going to get a little bit tipsy one time and say something completely horrible and inappropriate, and I'll pay for it.
So you just apologize and people will forgive you. It's okay.
Yeah.
We'll do the Canadian thing. Sorry about that, eh?
It means something different here. Just say that.
Yeah.
Got lost in translation. So actually, let's start with something that you posted just recently. Lifeguard?
Sure.
Missions?
Yeah.
Okay, first off, what's with the hat?
I'm going to see if I can make this louder.
Okay.
What the heck?
The hat.
Is that what you said?
The hat.
Oh, it's called a beanie, I think. It's mandatory. So every person with whatever race you're doing, you have to wear a beanie. Even if, so some of their events are just a pure beach run. Like you don't go in the water, you don't swim, you're not kayaking. Even in just the pure running event, you have to wear it. So I'm not the only one that looks ridiculous on the beach. There are other people.
Yeah, and what does it have a point?
I think so in their rules it does have a point. It's supposed to be along with like your chapter. So whichever beach you belong to and you're representing. But I honestly think it's just like old tradition that they're diehards about.
I'll be honest, I didn't know that you could represent a beach because now it's kind of sounding like a cool gang war thing.
It is a cool gang war. So I found out Ryan Kent also used to represent a beach pretty close to where I was working. So we were kind of like button heads before I even knew it.
You guys got to carry that under the Hyrox course sometimes.
Fortunately, it's not like male-female translation.
So what are those competitions like, though? I mean, I've never even heard of one. I've never seen it. I had no idea.
They're a blast. It's all for bragging rights. Like, there's no prize. I don't even think there's a trophy or medal. I don't think you get anything for doing well or doing poorly, but it's a ton of fun. They have regional events, they have national events, they have local events. So usually their national events will switch from coast to coast. So like one year it'll be on the East Coast, usually in Jacksonville. And then the next year it'll be somewhere in California on the West Coast. But they have like swim events, they have kayak events, they have paddleboard events, they have like multi-sport events, they have team events and partner events. So I think the picture I posted was a partner one. So my partner, she swam out to a buoy. And when she gets to the buoy, then I get to go out on the board. I pick her up and we paddle back in. So the team that comes back in first is the winner of that event.
Okay, I'm going to go off track already again.
Yeah.
No, okay, because
absolutely.
you said something, because you said a team event. And just today, and I want to get, we talked about it a little bit before, Beth, but I want to get your opinion too, Lauren. So, because I might have changed my mind. Someone today I was talking with, and they brought up the Hyrox team event coming up in Wisconsin. And originally I was kind of like, I didn't know about this thing, the Hyrox team. And then, she'll remain nameless, but Heather White told me who her team was. And I was like, oh, wow, that's freaking cool. And all of a sudden I'm completely turned around on the thing. And I'm like, okay, I want to watch that. I want to be a part of that. I want to see it. How do you feel about the Lord? How do you feel about the team event? Or do you know?
So I don't know all of the rules behind it. I think it's going to be a blast to watch, but from what I understand, it sounds like you can like never run. Am I right? Is that, I don't know if I like that. I kind of want to force every person to run it at least once. I feel like you shouldn't have anybody on there that can like be just a pure strength athlete.
Or just a pure runner.
Or just a pure runner. So I would like to find a way, like they don't have to do 2 runs. It doesn't have to be equal, but I'd like to find a way to like make you do at least one. But it looks like a lot of fun. I don't know if I'm going to make it to that one, but I am hoping that it's streamed because I definitely want to watch it.
Me too, because I want something to do. Mind you, by then we might actually be able to get there. I don't know. That's not really one on our radar for traveling to, more targeting at Boston, but
yeah.
And the Boston one's late enough that I'm hoping you guys should definitely be able to go to.
Yeah, it's December 18th, so we still have a long ways to go. We should be done by then.
Hopefully. I thought things opened up a little bit. Can you come over now?
Don't know. I don't think so.
There are so many loopholes, and rules. You cannot drive across. As a Canadian, you cannot drive across.
That seems silly, but
you
okay.
Can fly, but then when you come back, you have to spend 3 nights in a quarantine hotel, which cost about $2,000, and you have to have negative tests. And if you don't have a negative test, like if you test anything but negative, you have to stay there till you get one. And then if then once you finally get one, then you have to quarantine. I mean, the whole thing can get very expensive.
Essentially, you can't travel unless you have a ton of expendable.
Yes.
That's right.
Money and time.
Yeah.
Money and time.
Or if you have Ryan Atkins' dad to fly you across.
But he can come back without.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think too when they got across a few times, it was because they were able to list it as it was their job, right? So it was a work orientated thing for us to go to try to go across and say, hey, we're going on holiday. That's a little more difficult. But yes, you're right. It is lessening now. And my recent understanding, I don't want to say.
But still not really probable. Like possible, but not very probable.
Right.
No. It looks like it's becoming easier to fly.
Okay.
They're going to get rid of that hotel thing apparently this month.
Okay, that's good.
If you're double shotted and have a negative test.
Is it easy to get the vaccination there, or is it tough?
It's easier now.
It is easier now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was tough for a while, but now pretty much it seems like you could call a drugstore and within a couple of weeks have an appointment, give or take.
Yeah.
So
still not super easy. Like I just walked into a supermarket and they just gave it.
Okay, it's not that easy.
Yeah, well, we have universal health care, so shut up.
Yeah, that is nice. I would definitely take that.
All right. Actually, so we're gonna go back a bit. We just want to, because like we said, I've said it many times. That is, you won 2020. It just seemed like that year everybody else was collapsing and shut down, and you somehow burst on the scene and got more done than anybody else and got everywhere. And I think we talked about it just before we came on the air. And was it the first at-home Hyrox is where we first saw your name? Not even the VCF championship, was the at-home Hyrox. Now, am I right on that? Is that where we first saw you?
Is that the first one?
Where they did a video live stream and it was three women in the finale. I believe it was yourself, might have been Morgan, and
I think the first one was me and Kelly Sullivan. And Rebecca Nader.
Yeah. So how did that get started? How did you find out about that? And then where did you come from before that?
So I had done 3 Hyrox events before that, like in-person ones.
Okay.
I went to their first one in the US in Miami. And then the second one I went to was in Chicago. And then I went to their Dallas in 2020. So I was on their email lists. I followed them on all their Instagram pages and their social media things. So I just saw that they were putting a virtual challenge out, and I was like, well, I'm not doing anything else right now. I'm going to sign up for this.
So how did you end up hearing about the first one then?
The first Miami one?
Yeah.
Everything, probably anything that I've done in this racing or OCR world, I have Yancy to thank for. So Yancey Kolb. He is the one who like told me about the event in Miami and was like, hey, I think you're really going to like this. You should come down to it. I have a couple codes if you want to use one. I was like, yeah, that sounds fun. So I went to Miami for that first one, but it was Yancey that reached out and kind of explained to me what it was and gave me like a race code for it.
And you know what? I'm totally going to recant my previous statement because I just lied. The first time I heard about you was at TMX.
And that was also Yancey's doing.
I know. And that's why as soon as you said Yancey, it rang that bell in my head. I'm like, oh, now I remember Yancey. And then you tell the story about you and Jack Bauer.
And Jack Bauer. Have you heard about that one?
I have.
You have. So I think I've mentioned it before. I don't know if Jack has told you too. So Yancey knew or was working with the gym owner at a gym I was working at. And she just kind of told Yancey the things that I did. And so he reached out and told me that he thought I should do TMX. I was like, that sounds like a lot of fun, but it was going to be like the week after regionals that year. So I wasn't really sure. I was only coaching at the time. It ended up that I wasn't going to be able to afford to go. And I told him that probably like a couple days before. And Yancey actually paid for my whole trip there. So he flew me out there. He figured out a way for me to get from the airport to the venue, which was like 2.5 hours away. He let me stay in the hotel with Jack and himself. So I was in the room with the two of them. But yeah, no, I some random person that he said named Jack was going to come pick me up at the airport and drive me from, I don't know what airport I flew into, drive me from the airport about 2.5 hours. We passed through DC to where the venue was in Virginia. So I just kind of trusted that this person was going to be okay. Turns out it was Jack Bauer, like he's a sweetheart. I think like the whole OCR world probably knows Jack Bauer. And I learned a lot in that car ride about things that I had no idea what he was talking about, but and I may not have retained it, but he could spit some facts, that's for sure. But that's how I met Jack. So he was a random person that picked me up at an airport and drove me to Virginia for the TMX race.
I was just thinking in my head what it would be like to take a car ride with Jack and Yancey. I mean,
it was just Jack. Yancey was already there.
Because I was going to say, Jack and Yancey, you would not need to speak at all, right? Like,
well, that's true. So once we got to the hotel, like they like had all these plans and all these ideas, and they were coming out with, I remember at the time they were coming out with some top secret thing that they were talking about. And like, remember, I didn't know what OCR was. Like, I didn't know anything about this world, and it was top secret. So they're like, we have to leave the room because we can't talk about this in front of you. I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about anyway, but okay. So they left their room and they I don't know, they talked about whatever their top secret plans were, and then they came back in and they said, don't worry, you'll hear about it in a couple months. And I mean, maybe I did, but I still have no idea what it was. They shouldn't have been worried, because whatever they were going to talk about, I wouldn't have known what it was.
I could just see all night long. One, I don't believe Yancey sleeps. And two, I could just sit back with that glowing keyboard light all night long trying to figure out how to actually sleep in that room. That would be unreal.
Well, I took a red eye, so I was knocked out.
And TMX, what did you think of TMX? Because TMX is one of my favorite topics ever. I actually got to go down and do it. Loved it. I thought it was a great concept. I really wish it would come back.
I think, and it was granted my first event, but I think that's my favorite event that I've done thus far. Like, it was so much fun and it was so dynamic, had all these moving pieces, and there were things that were really scary, but like when I got through it, I'm like, okay, like I can do things I couldn't do. That was really cool. And they did a really, really good job with the production and the staging and like where they put things and how their rope climb was. So like you'd climb up, you'd have to jump to a rope over a water pit, climb up, and then like traverse down a side rope. And I don't know, it was nothing like I'd ever done before. I didn't know that was the last time they were ever going to have one either. So
no. And the thing I found about it that I always loved was that it wasn't for everybody. Like, you know, you saw when they had the first one, a lot of great, like, I believe Amelia was there and Lindsay. And I mean, they were just had a horrible time with those cleans, you know, getting the
well, I think there were two things in there that you don't typically see in an OCR race that really helped me out, because I never saw any of those obstacles before. So that was tough. But they had chest to bars, which I don't think, at least at the time, a lot of OCR racers really did chest to bars, or at least practiced how to like butterfly or kip them to do them efficiently. And that was super early on. So it gave me like a little bit of clearance. And then the sandbags were not light. Like they were heavy. Like it was no joke how heavy those sandbags were.
No, and by the same thing, the obstacles were actually a higher level. I mean, anyone who's done a Spartan is going to look at the obstacles that were at TMX and go, holy crap, because they were
tough.
Challenging obstacles.
Yeah, they were tough. I made it through to like past that first round by the skin of my teeth, because it was the first time I'd ever touched obstacles really. And I failed 2 of them and somehow still like skirted in by like 1 spot into the next heat.
All right. So should we move to Hyrox, Beth?
Hyrox.
Sorry.
No, that was me. It was all me. I was off on a tangent from moment 1.
Yeah. Dave would love to bring TMX back. So, you know, if anytime someone's done TMX, it has to be in the conversation.
Yes. I had a 1 time only, but I would do it again in a heartbeat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I first met you, Lauren, in Chicago at Hyrox there. So just briefly on the start line. It was barely a hello. But that's when I first met you. And that one went pretty well for you as well, right?
I think it's like all on perspective. I wouldn't say it went poorly, but I had a really hard time. Not that I don't always have a hard time with the sleds, but I had maybe the hardest time I've ever had on a sled pull at that event. And it was very, very frustrating for me, at least.
Well, that's good to know that maybe the sled pull was exceptionally hard there, because I was blown away by the sled pull there.
Yeah, I was so frustrated in that like particular area. But I mean, the rest of the race, I managed to like claw my way back, but it was, for those however many 8 to 10 minutes it took me, was very frustrating.
8 to 10 minutes. Wow.
It was long. You can probably go back and look.
I could.
I'm like 90% sure that it was over 8 minutes.
So you're feeling better by the minute, aren't you, Beth?
I'm feeling a lot better about myself now.
You should. That's a hard piece of that event.
Yeah,
every single time.
12.5 minutes, and I felt like it completely threw me out of the race.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like I just watched people like leave the area after I'd gotten there maybe minutes before. I'm like, crap, this isn't going well.
Why do you guys think that one was so bad? Like compared, and I mean, you've done so many of these now. Why is one different than the other? Are they not using the same carpet? Is it?
No, it's me. Like it's not them. It's not the carpet. I can't like hand over hand pull it, and I can't tug it, but I'll see other people around me that are stronger and can do it. And I always default to, well, if they can do it, why can't I? And then I waste time trying to do what they're doing. And I'm trying to not do that. I'm trying to only do the things that I can do.
In Chicago, I remember too being really impressed with your running, because you were one of the few people too who were running by me and lapping me that way. Minus, of course, Rebecca and Faye. So I've just been very curious what your running training looks like. It's really nothing special. So I don't do any speed work for mostly 2 reasons. One, I don't like it. It's a big one. And 2, it kind of scares me because I know that's like an easier way to get hurt. Yeah. And those aren't like good enough reasons. I think I should do it. I don't. And those are kind of the 2 big reasons why. One, I don't like it.
and two, I'm afraid of getting hurt. But I do a lot of long, just more aerobic based running. And I've done it I'm not like a traditional runner. I swam in college, but I always ran on the side. Like I just enjoyed it. And I think I started doing those long aerobic runs when I was 18. And I really besides maybe 2 months when I had a CrossFit coach tell me that I needed to stop running in order to get stronger. And then I didn't like that. So I went back to it. I've been consistent for 13 or 14 years.
Well, it seems to work for you too. So, I mean, you can run really well. And your sport isn't pure running. So you seem to manage well. I wouldn't change it.
Well, it's definitely getting better too. Cause I'd say over the past 2 years, I've upped the time that I run. It was definitely shorter previous to starting in the Hyrox events. And I've definitely upped the amount of running, and I can probably thank Faye for that, because in that first Miami event, she just continuously lapped me. And I was like, shoot, I can't keep getting lapped like this. I got to start running more. And I did. I immediately started running, just not more often, but more miles or more time.
Because if we go back to, I think it was the last VCF, your running became a real strength there. You actually had a really high score on the running list.
I don't even remember what the events were for the
the VCF. I don't remember that one.
Oh Lord! All I remember is that one guy did an 8:25 in some. Was it a 2?
It was a 3K.
3K, yeah, and pulled out an 8:25 or something like that. I don't know. Anyway,
did we have anything else in it, or was it just whoop?
No, that we did.
So I have dog knocked it over.
Events in one day. Hi, puppy.
Oh, that one. The 3 events in one day. Yes. So there's a 2
mile. Yeah, so that was a 2-mile run.
2-mile run. That's what it was.
Yeah.
But by that point, I had dedicated at least a year and a half to running even more than I previously was.
Yeah, and that's what I'm getting at, is that at that point, it was more clear that you had definitely upped the running game, because I mean, the stats are all gone now, but I remember you being in the top 3 for that particular run, for that 2-mile run.
Did you say somebody did it in 8 minutes?
Yeah.
Oh, not for real.
Oh my gosh.
A guy, actually, and you've met him. Oh my Lord, what's his name? He was the guy that came over from Europe for the Invitational. Ronkovic. Alexander Ronkovic.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, he had submitted an 8:25.
That's okay. I'm just gonna say okay.
Move on. That's what everybody says. Just move on.
Yeah.
So another kudos to your running was at Spartan Games, where Lindsay was raving about you keeping up with her and Nicole on the long runs, and just be like, yeah, I never run, or I never do fast, I'm just running along with you two, and you're the best, and la da 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 da. How do you? I'm just looking at it and tell me, Beth, is that normal for someone to be able to do that kind of excel at the running with that kind of training? And it seems
that distance, you're talking about where it was at the 5-hour run.
Yeah, 5 or 6 hours.
Long. 6 hours. We had to run for 6 hours. So maybe it was
5 and ran for 6.
Yeah, it was whatever it was. It was very, very long.
Yeah.
and go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, I had a friend over the other night. We watched it because he had never seen it, and there was a clip of you coming by, and someone's like, "Have you ever run this long?" And you just cheerfully run by, went, "No."
Well, I hadn't. I'd say that I am consistent, and I've been consistent for probably almost 14 years, and they're not so they started off really, really long. In the first couple of years, I was probably running 12 miles a day, and it was not for any sort of race. I wasn't interested in racing at all. I just wanted to do it. I was living in upstate New York at the time. It was beautiful, so many trees and different changing colors. And then eventually, I found CrossFit and I backed off a lot. And then I was running more like 4 or 5 miles ish a day, sometimes 7. And then I went through like a 2-month period where I stopped running because somebody told me to. And then I didn't like that. So I stopped listening to them. And then I slowly started building it back up, especially after Hyrox. And then now living in Salt Lake, and I'm not really trying to compete in CrossFit at all anymore. I'm not worried. I don't like that I've lost strength, but I'm not super worried about it. So my mileage has climbed back up again. So I would say that the Spartan game run went way better than I thought. But it's not like I wasn't running. Like I had been running for a very long time, just not competitively.
Yeah, like that's still a pretty decent amount of mileage for someone who doesn't call themselves traditionally a runner. So I'd say, and if you're...
I was hurting, I promise. Yeah. Very, very bad. I was hurting very bad. I had I guess I had the ability to complete it, but I wasn't conditioned enough to be okay the next day or even the next month. And that's not an exaggeration. It probably took me a month to kind of recover from that whole 4-day event.
It was amazing. It was amazing to watch. It was awesome to see. I would love to try something like that and just get destroyed at it, but you know,
it was so much fun. And as destroyed as I was, I would do it again. Like I would say yes the day they asked.
Oh, and Beth on Matt B. Davis podcast, they did make a joke about a media Spartan Games. I have already entered us both. I'm like, all right, I'm in for that. Yeah,
I'll cheer for you guys. I'd be excited.
That wrestling better be in it because I'm taking those points.
Oh, I didn't like. So they didn't show it, and I'm grateful. But I did cry during that event. I did not. I did not like the wrestling.
I feel like I might cry.
I know a lot of people ended up loving it, and they said they didn't think they were gonna like it, but they ended up loving it. I didn't think I was gonna like it, and I really didn't like it. I did not enjoy that part.
Yeah, we've been through it before, and I actually thought it didn't belong in the Spartan Games. I love it as an event just because that's something I do.
It looked really cool.
Yeah.
I liked watching it. I didn't like participating in it.
No. I thought it didn't belong. It was too random in the matchups, and it didn't.
Well, and like for me at least, the only people I beat were the people that I weighed more. Mm-hmm. And then I lost to people that are just better than me.
Yeah, it's just one of those events where I just feel like your size is so important. And
it was important.
Really tiny girls and like girls that are not so tiny, and it's just like, well,
I only beat 2 girls, and those 2 girls weighed significantly less than me, which isn't fair.
Yeah.
So you're a bit of a bully.
I was bully. I know.
So you just said that you're not really doing CrossFit, but didn't you just weren't you just in the CrossFit team competition for the?
I was. So
you're a bully and you're lying.
I know. I know. So I implement it into my training, not nearly as much as what I used to. And I signed up for the Open this year because the Open's fun and I enjoy doing it. And I like supporting CrossFit. I think it's done a lot for me. And I think it can still do a lot for like the whole community out there. But then it turned out we had a team qualify. So like we went to the quarterfinals and I was like, okay, like that's fine. I'll do the quarterfinals. Probably won't make it past that. And then we like qualified again. And we did have an alternate, and I asked if because things are very like hectic in terms of school and training for other events. And I asked, I was like, can the alternate take my spot for for this? But they politely asked me to do it because I think our female didn't really have she wasn't super consistent with muscle ups, and I don't think she had legless rope climbs. So those events would have been pretty tough to get through because it was very dependent on whether or not you had a female that could do them. So I did compete in that, but I also requested to give my spot away.
But they made you feel special, so you had to do it, right?
they're just awesome people. Like I had a great time with them. It was fun. I'm not conditioned for CrossFit right now at all, and I was very, very sore after.
So did you guys move on or no?
No, we did not move on.
Problem solved.
Problem solved. my CrossFit season is over. Yeah.
All right. So
it was fun. Yeah.
Let's get to the elephant in the room. Chicago US Championships. And I mean, why don't you just spell it all out? How did it all go for you?
For the lead up or the race or what exactly?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, the lead, I heard your week before too was really crazy, even just getting there.
Yeah, kind of the whole 2 weeks before, there's like ebbs and flows in my semester, and it just happened to be that the week before had some like really important things for school, which might have been a blessing in disguise. So I had just finished like the CrossFit stuff the weekend before. I was super sore, so I didn't train on Monday. And then it turned out like I really couldn't put like the training that I in my head wanted to do for the other days, because I had to buckle down and make sure that I didn't fail and that I could pass off. So I had like 2 like hands-on practical things that I needed to pass. And if I didn't pass, I failed the class. And if I failed the class, well, one, that's really expensive, and then I have to do it all over again next semester. So in my head, I didn't train the way I would have wanted to leading up to it. And even like the weeks leading up to it, just because, I mean, school takes a lot of time, but maybe it forced me to taper when I never want to taper. And maybe I had more energy going into the event. So it was hectic, but that might've been a good thing.
Now, how was your mindset and your confidence going in? Because I mean, obviously the Invitational didn't go as well as you'd hoped. And then when you came back, you went and did Orlando at the time trial, and you put in a fantastic run at Orlando. So, I mean, I know I had been watching the times and paying attention, and I was like, after the Invitational, I was like, okay, you know, she had a bit of a rough go. And then when you came back and put in like a personal best at the time trial, I was like, okay, I think she's coming in on a high note and has the right mindset. So I pictured you would do really well. I admit I did not see you winning it.
I didn't see me winning it either. It's okay. That's okay.
I have to admit it. I wrote it out. Like, people saw it. So,
but I mean, I think there's actually a little bit of disconnection between how I think Dallas went and how other people think Dallas went. For me, like so far, and I don't know if I'm gonna be able to pull this off again in my next one, because this past Chicago one like really took a lot out of me, but I've PR'd in every Hyrox I've done. So I've gotten faster every single time I've done it. I've never had a slower time. So every single time I finish, it's been a PR. So for me, Dallas was actually a pretty good PR that I was proud of. Mm-hmm. It was a faster time than I thought I was going to be able to go that day. And like, granted, maybe it wasn't the place that people thought I was going to finish in, but it was still faster than I thought I was going to go. And I was proud of it. So like the part that made me sad was other people were disappointed in something that I was proud of. So that was hard.
So, you know, that's an awesome perspective. Like, you're right. People don't think about that. I wouldn't have thought about that. Yeah. And I mean, like, that's something different. That's definitely a great way to look at it. And I hopefully you came to the point where you realize that everybody else is wrong and you're actually right.
Well, I mean, it's not a wrong or a right thing. I don't think people look into, I don't think people look into the times as much, and maybe didn't realize that it was a personal record for me. Mm-hmm. But it's hard to have people disappointed in your performance of something that you were proud of. Like, I thought I did, time-wise, I thought I did pretty well.
I think maybe people being disappointed in you might be not the way to put it. Because I mean, I think maybe expectations were just so high because of the performances you had put in. Like, we're such a high caliber. But yeah, what you're saying makes perfect sense. And I mean, you definitely have the right viewpoint on it. I mean, that's.
But going into Chicago, where we were in Chicago, I knew both Rebecca and Rachel planned on breaking the world record, and in my head, I was like, well, I know what my training's been like. I'm not in the shape to break a world record right now, so I can probably take third. Is like what I was thinking. Like, if they were so confident that they were gonna break the world record, and I had zero confidence that I was going to be able to go that fast, I was like, well, if I push really hard, I can probably take third, which is what I thought I was going to going into it. And then my sled pull, as I mentioned earlier, I decided to not watch the people around me and try and do what everybody else does, because I know I can't, and I just stuck from the beginning with how I know I can move it, and I didn't change, and it dropped my sled pull time by, like, that was the difference, was my sled pull time.
Okay, well, Beth, so just we heard her say earlier on, your previous Chicago run, your sled pull was around 8 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So you want to, I'm pretty sure you don't know this, but want to take a stab at what her sled pull time was for this one?
I have no idea.
You know? Let's
yeah,
say,
I know.
Like
I know.
5?
3:53.
Whoa.
Yeah, so a lot faster. I think my best one previous to that was 5 something.
That's
so like that right there was the difference in the time that I had going into it. So the Orlando time into this one was.
So how do you pull the sled?
I stopped trying to, because every once in a while I'd try and just like tug on it, because I saw Rachel could do that. I saw Corinna was able to do that. Faith was able to do that. And I was like, I want to do that. It's saving your legs, but I can't. Like, I tried, and it really doesn't move. So I put the rope to the side of me. I stopped straddling it because that wasn't working for me either. So I keep the rope on the side, and then I just walk back with it. And then I go back up, and then I walk back, and it's
so all legs and just holding.
Yeah, it's legs, and it's not what I want to do, because so much of the rest of the event is legs, but it's the only way I can make it move fast enough. So I just kind of deal with the leg burn and just go.
And then run it out later.
Yeah.
It didn't seem to affect you negatively, because from that point you just started gapping. Like, you just putting more and more distance between. And I mean, we spoke with Rachel. She had some IT band issues, but I mean,
and that's painful. Like, that's no joke.
But Rebecca was still running a good race, and you were just building that gap.
I think Rebecca is a really, really big part as to why I was even able to get 15 seconds under that record, because I know how fast she is in that second half. Like, if you break the race up and the second half has 8 pieces, so there's 4 stations and 4 runs, I'd say 6 out of those 8 pieces, she's faster than me. So I have to do my best to stay where I am, knowing that, like, every time she's closing the gap a little bit. So I think I pushed harder on whether my time was faster or not, my effort in the lunges was faster. And that is the worst I have ever felt in wall balls in that event. Like, I thought I was going to fall over.
You did 100 wall balls in 3:42.
And I think that was like 30 seconds slower than my best.
It was the fastest on the day, but it was.
but
it's still.
But
it's
it
3:42. That's quick. That is quick.
Yeah. My legs were. I didn't know if I was going to stand all of those wall balls up. Like, I thought I was going to fall over, but everybody's screaming to keep going, and I'm like, and then when I only have 10 more, they're like, "Don't drop it." I'm like, no, I'm gonna fall. Like, I can't not drop it. Like, I have to put this down, or it's gonna hit me in the face and I'm gonna fall. But I've never felt like that on wall balls ever. So she pushed me very, very hard.
So at what point, so 2 questions. At what point did you realize that you were going to be able to beat Rebecca, and at what point did you realize you were on pace to beat the record, or did you not know until Matt told you, essentially?
I at no point until I crossed the finish line did I think that I was like had it, that I definitely was going to beat Rebecca. As I said, like she's faster in 6 out of those 8 back things than I am. So at no point was I comfortable. And then going into the wall balls, somebody yelled to me that I was under the record pace, but I didn't know what the world record was because I didn't go into the day trying to break it. So I didn't really know when I crossed the finish line and saw my time if that was fast enough. I asked, but I didn't know.
Oh, it was, and it was an amazing run. I remember when we were blown away just watching and just getting to see it happen, and just how, I mean, I'm sure for you it didn't feel this way, but you looked so smooth, so consistent. I mean, especially I remember thinking back to the burpee broad jumps, and it looked like it wasn't taking anything out of you, like you were just cruising.
So I will say that like the whole time, and I don't know if I felt this way before, both my heart rate and my breathing felt super in control. Like I never felt like that was what was holding me back. My legs were just so fatigued, especially in like the last 20-ish minutes. But like my heart and my lungs felt great the whole time. My legs couldn't keep up with them.
I would like to see the time if your legs could have kept up with them.
I don't know. So I'm gonna try and like do some more single leg work, and see if I can strengthen them to be able to not feel as bad. But I don't think there's really enough time before the next event to make too much of a difference.
So jumping into that, what's the next event?
Utah in like a week and a half.
Utah. So the Utah
Spartan
race?
Spartan, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
So it's like an hour north of me. But I'm actually signed up for the rest of the national series. So I plan on going to like Utah, Asheville, Big Bear, and where's the other one? West Virginia. And then I don't know if I'm gonna go to Tahoe, but I did sign up for it. But I know there's 3 things that I would be interested in that weekend.
Is OCR WC one of them?
Well, I had from Hunter's thing, like I had the qualification for it. But I think that's like 3rd on the list for me because it's the furthest one away. But there's also Hyrox LA that day. My first choice is definitely Tahoe. What worries me is the cold. That's the first race I think I'm going to enter into knowing that there's like a 50% chance that I'm going to DNF.
Oh.
Well, hope there's no fluke snowstorm.
Yeah.
Now, Beth, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't this one a little earlier than normal at Tahoe?
Yeah, it's earlier. I think I'm not sure exactly, but it's earlier than the last one.
End of September, whereas normally it's like...
Oh, no, it was end of September last year.
Oh, well, sorry, that didn't help then.
Oh, well, yeah, so I know how cold it can get. I've seen many people, because I watched some of the recaps, have to DNF, and I'm not great in the cold, and I think there's a good chance that I DNF as well. So I just have to go into it knowing that that's a possibility and see how far I can fight through.
You wanna let her know how yours went?
Well, I don't know if she wants to know.
I do. I want to know.
Yeah, I didn't finish in 2019. Yeah.
Was it before or after that lake swim? Because that looks so hard.
I didn't make it to the lake swim. I fell into ape hanger and went under.
So you were still submerged?
I was fully submerged in ape hanger. And from what I heard, ape hanger was a lot colder than the lake. The lake actually felt warm because it was warmer than the air temperature. But no, I fully submerged in ape hanger, and then I started seizing so bad after that, and then yeah.
And I've heard stories from a lot of people like of similar occurrences.
Yeah. I got to the double sandbag carry, and I couldn't, I lost the ability to even move my arm. So I dropped them, and then I blacked out.
Oh my gosh. That's scary. That's very scary.
But like the snowstorm made it a lot worse. Gear choice makes a big deal too. Like there's a lot of things that we could talk about too. Like I made some mistakes with gear possibly. So yeah.
Well, then I might be asking you a lot of questions on the side on what to avoid and what to do for it. But I am signed up for it.
Yeah.
And that's currently my first choice. So I'll just kind of wait and see as it gets closer.
Well, as like a competitive thing, I mean, your competition is going to be split. You're going to have a lot of your competition at OCRWC, which, you know, I mean, it's not the greatest way to look at it, but it's like, oh, well, you know, you could end up placing a lot better because you will be missing out.
I don't want that though. Like if I'm gonna like, I don't want there to be, oh, but this person wasn't there, and I don't know. I don't like that. Like I signed up for these national series races because I want to race like the best. I want to see what they do. I want to see how far behind I am. I want to see what I need to work on. Like, I don't want people to not show up.
See, that's the proper answer.
Like that. Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't know why you would want to go into something and it be just like an easy.
It's really tough that weekend trying to choose between OCRWC and the North American Championships. Like, it's a really unfortunate decision that people have to make.
Yeah, and for some of us, like, we live closer to one than the other, so the decision is kind of easier for some of us, but it's still unfortunate the decision needs to be made.
Yeah,
I mean, it would be even for me, I have no interest in what she did or what you're about to do, but even for me, if I was in your position, living where you did, that would be awful hard to walk over to go anywhere else. It would be very difficult.
And it is a beautiful venue, like Lake Tahoe. Honestly, like, I would love to go back just to race it because it was so beautiful and I loved it in every other aspect other than that I fell into the water, in the frozen water. And I think too, hopefully from maybe what had been learned from that event, if it does go below a certain temperature, maybe they just will close the water obstacles considering the amount of people that DNF'd. So it'll be a very different situation for you, I think.
Hope so. Crossing my fingers.
Yeah.
Do you guys think that adds to the sport, that having that kind of, that, I don't know what you would call it, but not too many of the sports have something where you bring in horrible weather and extreme cold swims as part of the game. I personally don't think it adds to the sport. I think it takes away, because I want to see who the best athletes are. I don't really care who can tolerate the cold the most. That's not...
I think it depends on like what you're trying to see. So if you're trying to see who's the toughest, well, that's not going to be me, but I don't know. I think it definitely has an element, and I think it has its place. I just know it's not something I excel at.
Mm-hmm. I think it just isn't necessarily it shouldn't be in a championship race. Right. I think Lake Tahoe as its own thing, if people want to challenge themselves and see, can I withstand Lake Tahoe conditions, the lake swim, I want to challenge myself against the elements, that's totally cool, and that's some people's thing. But I think as a championship race where everyone is training for Spartan racing and it's not necessarily a battle of who can survive that element, because that was really what Tahoe was about that year, is could you survive it or not. Not necessarily you could have been in the best shape of your life, but if you can't handle the cold, then so I don't know, that's kind of how I look at it.
I agree, and then at the same time I look at it as, well, I'm not the one who gets to make the decision, so whatever they decide, I'm just gonna have to roll with the punches.
Yeah, and some people say, that's part of Spartan, the element is, so I don't know.
I do. It sucks. Okay, so
Well, it'd be better for me if they didn't have it.
That's right. So honestly, you're going to kick ass either way. I'll utmost faith that you will. Hyrox World Championship, is that something that's going to happen for you or not?
So I've been like scouring the internet for trying to figure out how to cost effectively get there. I originally thought that was in my first week of my third semester, but it turns out the semester starts on the 13th. So it is one less thing for me to worry about. But cost wise, like it's pretty expensive to get there. So I've done, I've looked through all these different cities. Like I tried looking at a bunch of different flights that automatically give you layovers, and like those were just insane. So then I was looking at how to fly to different cities that might have cheaper flights out of the city to get to somewhere into Europe. And so far, the best deal I've found is flying to Fort Lauderdale, staying the night there, then flying from Fort Lauderdale to Frankfurt, taking the train in from Frankfurt to Leipzig. So staying in Leipzig, then going back to Frankfurt for the way back, and then flying into New York, and then flying from New York to Salt Lake is, I know it's crazy, but I'm trying to figure out a way to afford to get there.
If you win, will it cover the cost?
If I win, it will cover the cost, but like I'm also, so for school, I'm paying out of pocket right now. So I don't actually have like the expenses to put towards, and I don't like putting things on my credit card to put towards those tickets. So unless I find something that I can actually afford, like I can't go.
And sadly, due to DECA, Yancey probably won't pay for this one.
He was gracious. He's been gracious enough with everything that he's done.
It's amazing, and we love Yancey.
I owe Yancey for a lot, and I would not be able to accept his help again.
Well, hopefully you'll make it. Because I really want to know, and you might be the only woman with this perspective and really able to answer this question. But how do you feel the North American crop of women will fare against the Europeans? Because they've never really had a chance yet to go head to head to come across. So you think of like Sarah Colty and Imke and Viola, like how are they going to stack against Rachel and Rebecca and all the other women from the US?
So that it's so hard to tell because it is a race and it kind of could be a time trial if you can go into it and put your head in and know your race and go. But if you start feeding off of different people's strengths, like it could change your race. So it depends on like how much you feed into different things. So even just in the US, so for me, racing against Rebecca and Rachel's very, very strong in the first half. Like she's significantly stronger than the rest of us in the field. Like her sleds are incredible. But then you have Rebecca, who is a speed demon. She's so fast. And then she's really, really good on those back half events as well. So you kind of like me racing both of them, they're two different spectrums, and trying to figure out like where I should be at different parts of the race is just, it's a lot to think about while you're going. And it's the same thing over there in Germany. Like those girls all have different strengths. Like you see Sarah Colty, who can push the sled like she's pushing a stroller, and like and like so some girls are, and MK is just super, super fast. So just kind of staying with the time trial mind, I think, is going to be everybody's best bet if you haven't raced them yet, because otherwise you might get caught up into what they're doing, and everybody has different strengths.
To me, I look at it like that, and I mean, you would think that Hyrox could be broken down completely into a time trial, because you're just you could put the blinders on, not care what anybody else is doing, and just go for your best time. But I mean, Bethany, you can attest that doesn't always work in the track world either, does it?
It's hard.
And when you're a competitive person, it just gets so much in your head too. Like you want to race.
I think like the more people we can get to be at that race, like especially on the female side. I mean, we know that Hunter's going to win on the guy side, but on that female side, it will be a very fun event to watch because everybody has different, like drastically different strengths. So I think there's going to be a lot of moving pieces.
Well, I look at it as, I mean, sadly, Rebecca is moving on to do other things and, you know, greater things, smart things, you know, whatever.
She's saving the world.
Saving the world. She's too good a person anyway. So sadly here, but then I look at the five of you, of yourself, Rachel, Imke, Viola, and Sarah, and that is another where we were dealing with the three of you where we could have picked anything and nobody, it could have been picked any one of you and nobody would come out. Now it'll be five of you and just the same deal. You could throw that blanket on, like theoretically could have five of you on the wall balls at the same time racing for the end.
And probably most likely we would be all on the wall balls at the same time. I would think. That
to me promotes amazing sport. That would be fantastic to watch. And I will say this about the guys. Take Hunter out of the equation, and that battle for second beyond becomes very similar to the women's field.
Yeah.
Where, again, who's going to have that day? Who's going to have the good day? Who's going to show up? Because we saw Dylan showed up and he had the day, and David Magida he had an off day, and that can so easily happen by anything. It really, to me, it makes it exciting, and, you know, Hunter wrecks it all, but whatever, you know.
But I mean, that happens, like, that's sport. Like, that's what happens with athletes. Like, some days we have good days and some days we have bad days. And then you look at the female side, like, on top of that, there's menstrual cycles going on. Like, you can have some really bad days, and it does change kind of depending on like what time of the month you're on, like how well you're feeling and how well you're going to perform. And part of it's mental, but a lot of it's physical too.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know how you guys walk around.
I don't either.
Well, Bethany, I'm good. Do you have anything else for Laura?
No, that's great. It's been awesome talking to you, Lauren. It was really nice to finally meet you face to face again. So thanks so much for being on with us today, and all the best with the rest of your season. And
thank you.
Yeah, we hope you crush it out there in the Spartan series.
I have zero expectations, but I know that I had a blast on the last one I did. So I'm excited. I'm excited for them. It'll be fun.